So welcome back to the Will Reads does the reviews. Yeah, we're going right into episode 2, season 1, episode 2, Shadows Waiting. And just before I get into anything else, I wanted to talk about something that I got in at least my DMs about our first video. The first video I did, of course, I didn't have any effects or anything like that, where it had like little title bars or graphics or anything like that. And normally I do those are pitch stills in my videos, but in essence of time, I've been doing these rough cuts and just trying to get this information out to you guys. Basically, they dropped 3 episodes, and I've had a very busy week. So with Thanksgiving and everything, moving forward, once we get past these first 3, I'll try to start adding more of those kind of things, make it look more visually appealing. Yeah, for the first 3, it might just be me talking. So bear with me. It'll look better later, maybe. I don't know. We'll see if I even like doing these reviews and if I keep doing them. I did enjoy doing the first one. I did get some feedback that was a little harsh on the rating. And I think I prefaced it well. And I'll say it again. I do in case haven't seen the first one, go check it out. I rated the first episode. But I'll say this again. When I do these ratings, I am one of those people that definitely tends to be like a perfect 10 doesn't exist kind of thing. I mentioned that last time. Yeah, leave it at that. I gave the first episode a C, of course. And with that being said, it doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's good. It means it's average. People tend to think C's are bad just because I think the American grading system puts C's as bad. Middle of the road. It's average. It's not great or groundbreaking, but not bad either. It's just, it's average. So that was the first episode. I pretty firmly believe it was average, a little above average, but just slightly, but yeah, average. So let's get right into our grading scale for the second episode. And then I'll talk a little bit about what I liked and what I didn't like about it as well. So spoilers, this is going to be for Eye of the World, full spoilers, the book, and also the TV show, obviously. So you've been warned. So we'll get right first into pacing. So where the first episode, I gave it a 4. I just thought the pacing was really, really bad. I give this one an 8. This was a lot better paced. Definitely flowed better. The sequences went well together, and it was like a constant kind of crescendo versus go stop, go stop, go stop that you got a lot in the first episode. It just felt a lot more smoothly. It went smoothly. So I definitely enjoyed the pacing better in this one. Hence, I gave it an 8. Acting, once again, actually even give it a little higher score in this one just because there were the lines were delivered so well. There wasn't that clunkiness that we got in the first episode where some of the lines just didn't deliver that well. The actors, I just didn't feel right. Kind of felt flat in the first a few lines. But Barney Harris just kills it in this episode. The one-liners that Matt does are just fantastic throughout this entire episode, and all the characters do a really, really good job. Even in the one scene where they do the Weep for Manetheren, and singing a little bit. Actually, I've been humming that tune and kind of singing the main chorus, under my breath all week long, and very catchy. So, and I know it's more writing, but still just the way it was delivered by the actors, just really good. All around, felt emotion. They didn't feel like flat characters. They felt well developed. 9 out of 10. Acting great. Special effects. I give it a little better than the first episode. I think the first episode I gave it a 6. I gave it a 7. And the reason why I didn't go higher with that, when the Trollocs are chasing them into Shadar Logoth in that scene, the Trollocs, there's still some of that CGI glitchiness, especially like you see some of them in the background, and it doesn't look natural. And I know this was addressed, I think, in a recent interview with Rafe. I think it was on Reddit, talking about how late I'm recording these things. And he talked about how COVID hurt some of that CGI and the VFX team, the visual effects team. So, I hopefully that improves as we have episodes going forward. As far as like the Bashindar and I guess that didn't say that word inside the TV show. As far as the Black Crawley stuff, in Shadow Logo himself, I thought that was done really, really well. That does differ from the books a little bit, but I like this adaptation, that take on it. So, not bad scores there. 7 out of 10. Going to writing, I think this was a well-written episode. Very well-rounded. 8 out of 10. Just thought that, like I said, that the scenes, the way that it was written, so you got the pacing, you got the acting, but just the way it was all put together, the cohesion of the story, the plot moving forward, this felt more like Wheel of Time than the first episode did, where it still had Wheel of Time, but this felt right. So 8 out of 10, pretty high score there. And then as far as action goes, gave it 8 out of 10 as well. First episode I gave it 6 just because it was so slow to get going. I felt like even though the main action sequence is at the end when they're in the Shadow Logoth, I felt like even the little bit in between with the White Cloaks, which I don't know if that's really action. By the way, going back to writing, that was awesome. Just the way that whole opening scene was amazing. And then even the interaction between Moiraine and the White Cloaks again later in the episode, I enjoyed that writing. There were a few things I'm going to talk about a little bit, and that's why I didn't get a 10. It got an 8, and it really had to do with that scene. And that might fix itself later. But yeah, we'll get to that. And then as far as action goes, like I said, the dream sequence kind of actiony with the bats, which differs from the books as well. So if you haven't read the books, I'm sorry, but that does a little bit different. But just the grossness of it, and I guess you could see action. I got on the edge of my seat, so kind of action. But Shadow Logoth, even though it's fast, was done well. So let's talk about what I liked and what I didn't like. I kind of hinted to some of those things. So start with the opener, the White Cloaks. That first scene with the Aes Sedai burning at the stake. Obviously that's something that doesn't happen in the book, so they're definitely leveling up the White Cloaks. I already knew this from I think it was a leaked trailer, or not a leaked. It was actually in the trailer. Yeah, it was in the trailer where it had the Aes Sedai burning, and it still doesn't explain how. Besides, they're chopping their hands off, and maybe that has something to do with it. I can only assume that has to do with how they're able to do it, but how they're even able to get close enough to an Aes Sedai to chop their hands off, I don't know. So I guess WAFO, watch and find out. So that's something that I definitely like the opening scene, like the way they're setting up the White Cloaks. Moving on to later in the story as they're traveling through, I guess we get to the ferry as well. Didn't mind the ferry scene at all. It got the point across. It was we didn't have all the men trying to rob them and everything like that we do in the books, but at the same time, I don't think that was really needed. It got the point across, and it still set that moral dilemma. I think they did that in the books as well. It didn't. Master Hightower didn't jump in after the ferry, but they still destroyed his ferry and his livelihood, and there was still some moral questions. They just upped the ante for this, and like I said, don't mind that. I think it definitely, actually, is good writing for that. Also, like how they actually still kept some of the same, pacing of the books. So, after they cross the Terran, they get over there, and then they have the little meeting between Moiraine and Egwene with the stone, which occurs in the books as well, right around that time. And then when they're in Barillon is when they have the dreams with the rats. So yeah, so that scene with Egwene, that happens, and then the rats inside Barillon, that they turned into bats, but that would, even though they're just sleeping on the road, it's around the same time in the story. And then fast forward when they meet the White Cloaks, just the next morning, same time frame as when they, meet the White Cloaks. And it's not Jeffrem, it's Dane, his son in the books, but still has that same interaction. Now, of course, the books have a different interaction, but it's still kind of that tension moment of having the group meet White Cloaks. So I'm glad they're still kind of following that guideline. So you're still kind of fitting the pieces together. And then, they do have the chase of the Trollocs into the city, which that happens, of course, in the books. It's a lot more fleshed out, but being that it's a TV show and they have time constraints, it's hard to show every single battle scene. obviously. So still had the chase into the city. And then they get in the city, and just like in the books, they start, wandering around. You see a little different, but, Rand and Egwene up in the tower. And then you have Matt wander off and find the dagger. Of course, that's different than it was in the books with Mordeth. I don't necessarily mind cutting the character Mordeth out here just because it was a little weird. We joke around our podcast that it was like, he's like the German that always gets upset and like just kind of a weird character. I think they still can incorporate like Mordeth's soul in the lore later on and talk about that's an embodiment of the history of Shadow Logoth. And I think Rafe has hinted to that they're going to probably do flashbacks. I really think I've seen some footage that obviously wasn't in the first few episodes, or some stills that lead to some flashbacks. So some things they cut out, they might still put in, and it might just be for a TV type thing. So after we see the big picture, like, oh, they still included everything. They just kind of move things around a little bit to keep to try to make pacing better, which I appreciate. I think that's a good thing. And then, like I said, they get split up at the end, and Nynaeve shows up at the very end with Lan, which I love that. That's sneaking up on Lan, because that's just classic in the books. And that's when, Nynaeve does sneak up on them. Of course, she'd already joined them before they get Shadow Logoth, but still, that sneaking up, it just, yeah, thought that was awesome. So what do I dislike? The meeting with the White Cloaks. So there's one line, and everybody's been talking about it, and I didn't like it either, is when Jeff from Bornhold tells Moiraine to go find a sister, an Aes Sedai sister, to go heal her wound, which is completely against anything a White Cloak would ever say. No White Cloak would ever say go seek out Aes Sedai. That's just not, no one would. In fact, the questioner would probably turn around and start questioning him immediately, even if he's the commander. That just doesn't happen in the book. So I'm interested to see why they took that spin. Maybe they're trying some other angle, and maybe it's a watch and find out kind of thing. And I will put my foot in my mouth and be like, okay, that makes sense now. But other than that, I mean, not having the Manetheren speech in the village. It was epic in the books, but I liked the song and I liked the way they delivered it. I thought it was a good delivery of it. So didn't mind that. Sorry, I have a cold too. And then, Shadow Logoth, not having Mordeth, didn't mind that. Changing the Mashadar, which is the black substance. It was fog in the books that did the same type of thing when it enveloped and kind of like ate you. They didn't show it happening. I guess they crawled down a Trollocs throat. The Trollocs actually got pushed into the city by Fades in the books, and that's why they had to run. But having Mashadar show up and they have to run because of Mashadar, it still has the same effect. I mean, they were running from Mashadar as well, and they all get split up as well. So all that fits all along the lines with, I mean, it felt a lot like the books. Just thought that was really well written. Like I said, 8s and 9s, only 7 it got on this one was just the special effects, just because those few Trolloc movements are still just not, the CGI in the background is just not there. I think it's that practical effects CGI mixture. There's just some glitchiness there that just feels a little cheapened. But overall, great episode. In fact, I gave that an 82 on my grading scale, which is actually a B+. Not quite an A yet. Like I said, A's are really rare, but it's that by far worlds better than the first episode. And I really thought this was a strong episode. This got me really hyped and going. So excited to give you guys more of these reviews as we do number 3. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave some comments. Let me know what you think about these episodes. Love to read your thoughts and interact with you guys. Like I said, I'm just putting these out there as far as what my gut reaction was when I watched it. I went down and typed and actually made these notes about what my rating would be for each one of these categories. So I'm trying to go back to what that gut feeling was. Watching it with some first time our never readers, as we call them, people that have not read the books. I think a lot of them really enjoyed this episode a lot. Could definitely tell they were very, very intrigued by it. And plus, you get some of that lore and background, which for people that haven't read the books is just a great way just to flesh out this world and its world building. And I really like it. There's also some foreshadowing in there. I'm not going to really point those things out because it's not an Easter egg video or a little bit of a speculation video, but there are a little bit of tidbits here and there that happened in the episode that definitely either point back to the books or also point to foreshadowing for the future that I think I have predictions for. But I will maybe make different videos about that, or maybe just talk about it in the podcast. So you can always check us out on our podcast on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast. Actually, I think we're on like, I don't know, 10 of them. So probably more. Just type in The Will Reads. You'll find us. Like and subscribe, comment, and until next time, guys, peace.